Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we've got a special guest for you. Paul Prager, who's the CEO of TeraWulf, is going to be joining us to talk about their Q2 results. TeraWulf is one that I personally hold. I'm very excited about moving into the next few quarters, and we've got a lot to talk about in today's presentation. Now before we get into all that, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let me know in the comment section below what you thought about TeraWulf's Q2 results, if you have any additional questions for Paul, and if you're currently holding shares of this stock. Now with that being said, let's get into today's interview. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we've got Paul Prager back from TeraWulf. He's the co-founder, CEO, and chairman of the organization. And Paul's with us for a second time to talk about their Q2 results and a number of other things that I've added to my list since our last interview. So Paul, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Yeah, this is definitely one of the more popular companies we cover on the channel. And I was joking before we started here, my list is just continued to grow. It's a good mix of subscriber requests and some of my own personal questions. So to kick things off, Paul, for people who maybe missed our last video, can you give us just a quick high-level summary of what TeraWulf's all about?
Sure. TeraWulf is a team of executives that work together for decades, building and operating energy infrastructure and power plants. We have, 20 years of experience in energy supply optimization, operations, and engineering. We built out Mara's facility, by the way, when they just got started, when they were once valued at $7 billion. I think they had 3 employees. We were 45. We were able to figure out that way through trial and error and the right way to build a data facility, a Bitcoin mining facility. And we decided to do it ourselves in Wulf with a couple of strategic advantages. One is this team of executives have been together a long time. We wanted to control our own destiny. 2, we wanted to be vertically integrated. We'll talk about that maybe later. And 3, we wanted to be sensitive to fossil fuel. We wanted to be all about, zero carbon. We have 2 large facilities right now, 110 megawatts and 50 megawatts. One's hydro in New York, the other is Nuke, Pennsylvania. Low cost, 91% zero carbon. Again, vertically integrated, totally scalable. And we have another 130 megawatts in those sites that are shovel ready. We have the highest level of management and board and insider ownership in the space, well over 50%. And I have constantly purchased shares on opportunity, consistent with my promise to be supportive to the company.
Great. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the personal buying you've been doing a little bit later. I know that news broke this week, I think. The access to low-cost nuclear power, renewable power, that's another huge draw. We've had a number of guests on recently talking about the necessity of low-cost power going into the halving, and I think that really positions TeraWulf quite nicely. So we'll get into a lot of that stuff. Now, you were supposed to come on last week. We had conflicting schedules. So I know Q2 is a couple weeks stale now, but Paul, can you tell us some of the highlights from your Q2 results? I know this made a pretty big splash in the community.
Yeah, TeraWulf really performed in outstanding fashion. Q2, we demonstrated consistent growth both year over year and quarter over quarter. As promised, we exited Q2 with 5.5 exahash and 160 megawatts of power capacity. I think it's important because we like to talk about execution a lot. We made a promise. We kept the promise. We delivered on the exahash. We fully commissioned a second building at our Lake Mariner site, upstate New York. We're already into a third building now. Our Bitcoin production steadily increased in the first half of 2023. We have a massive upward trend in revenue, enhanced liquidity, and free cash flow. We're a sustainable company. We had a 70% increase in Bitcoin mined quarter over quarter and 91% increase in self-mining hash rate quarter over quarter. And we are committed to sustaining this momentum as we move forward. We had a great quarter.
Yeah, I'll say I would say a blockbuster quarter. I'm a shareholder of this company. I've been adding myself and really happy with what the executives and management are delivering. And I really like your statement around delivering on promises around growth and exahash. So you guys are at 5.5 now. I think you mentioned 7.9 is kind of the next milestone, that big purchase from Bitmain. So can you tell us a little bit about that next step or segment of growth, I guess, Paul?
Sure. You know, we started this chat by talking about vertical integration, shovel-ready megawatts. We're currently expanding our operations at the Lake Mariner facility in New York with the addition of this building 3. We expect it to increase our capacity at that facility from 110 megawatts to 153 megawatts by year end. It's in connection with that expansion that we purchased the Bitmain machines. We ordered 18,500 S19 JXPs. And I think it's important that we emphasize just how important this announcement is for TeraWulf. The purchase of these latest generation Bitmain miners is meaningful, not only because of it's the first of its kind in the world, but because of the significant operating efficiencies it will drive ahead of next year's halving. These miners will reduce our cost to mine Bitcoin significantly. And come 2024, we expect our fleet efficiency to be, among the tops in the peer group with 25.7 joules per terahash. We think that's pretty great. When coupled with a realized average power between the Nuke and Lake Mariner of 3.5 cents, we think that's a conservative number. TeraWulf is positioned to maximize profits both before and post the halving. So that's where we're coming out in terms of the expansion.
Yeah, sounds like a good deal. I'm excited to see that, and again, confident that you guys will deliver on that promise as well. Again, access to the cheap, reliable power and the efficient mining rigs, kind of the double header there, Paul, I guess, going into the halving. So next question. I know a lot of people in the community, subscribers, have been talking about some of the challenges that summer presents to the various different miners, whether that's energy curtailment or heat and operational challenges. Can you talk to us a little bit about TeraWulf's strategy there? Are you guys impacted to the same extent? And if so, what are you doing about it?
Listen, I think in Bitcoin mining, location is everything. Our facilities are ideally located in places that experience modest seasonality, but certainly not the extremes that you're seeing in Texas. Because of where we're located, we're not a burden on the grid. And therefore, we don't need to curtail as often as those in high demand regions. In upstate New York, we actively participate in 2 demand response programs, which are a valuable resource to the grid in the few weeks a year that they have extreme demand. I look at it as a win-win because we're paid a capacity payment and an energy payment when we are curtailed. And it's during a time when typically our profitability to run would be lower.
Gotcha. Okay, so
just a couple of other little points on that. We don't go into an area that we don't know from both a regulatory perspective and an operating perspective. So as a vertically integrated company, we own our sites. It's our own people that are maintaining it. We know how to manage even logistics of spares to the sites. If you have a hiccup, you can't help having an equipment failure. You could do all the preventative maintenance in the world. You could have an equipment failure. We understand sourcing spares, having spares on site, the logistics of getting them to the site. We understand the regulatory regime in those sites. And then we also understand through having operated plants at those sites, what the typical weather patterns are, what the typical power prices are during any particular season. So I think we're well advantaged relative to the competitors in the space. And having that regional diversity is also, a big plus.
Sure. Yeah, I like how you brought up the fact about repair parts, because we've seen a number of your competitors, many of which have come on the channel. I'm not going to name names, but they've had issues, like you say, they're going to come up, and they've really struggled to get buildings or rigs or whatever back online. So I think that's an interesting point about the location as well, Paul. Now, Next question. I know a lot of people were excited to see this news. The share price popped on the back of this news. You've gone out, you've purchased some additional shares over the last 12 months. You said you put in about $12 million of your own capital. I think I saw a number about 55% of shares are now held by insiders, which is a very impressive number, like you said, of any of the miners in the industry. So can you tell us about all of that excitement and news that I think came out last week?
Well, it came out last week because I followed the new Form 4 and I just bought shares last week. I mean, the market was feeling oversold to me. I really believe in our company. Again, the insiders own over 50%, almost 55% of the company. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to do something that is dilutive to the shareholders. It means that unless an acquisition or an expansion or even our costs are all accretive, I'm not going to dilute shareholders to pay bills. And I think, a lot of our competitors are doing that. And so for us, every single thing we do, we are aligned with you as a shareholder. And I'm grateful to hear that you are and that you're continuing to grow. I grew my position just last week. And I will continue to. I mean, I think, listen, I believe in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is good. Bitcoin's important. It's not going away. The regulators even like it. I mean, they don't like a lot of stuff, but they like Bitcoin. And I think we're the best in the space at mining. And mining is a leveraged play on Bitcoin if you're an investor. So I think that if I'm going to be in this space, because I really believe in Bitcoin, I want to do it right, which means low costs, zero carbon focus, vertical integration with the best team on the planet, then I want to own the stock of that company. And I certainly want to continue to lead by example. If I can't lead by example, I have no business being in this business. So that's our focus. And that was what the recent purchase was about.
Love it. Yeah, great to hear as a shareholder and putting your money where your mouth is, literally backing that up, Paul. So that's great to see. Now, we've talked about a few of these catalysts on the horizon, the expansion plans, the big miner rig purchase, some of the insider buying, but is there anything else that comes to mind that subscribers, viewers, investors should have kind of on the calendar over the next few quarters for TeraWulf?
Organic growth at our sites with the recognition that we're not going to do anything unless it's accretive. And I think in a challenging market, you're going to start to see some of our competitors, have bigger and bigger challenges. You mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, a lot of these folks, they follow the host model. So everybody can have an equipment failure. The difference is, does that equipment failure lead to 2 days downtime or 2 weeks downtime or 2 months downtime? If it's TeraWulf and we have an equipment failure, it's going to be that 2 days. If it's somebody else in a host model, they got a third-party operator, they got a utility they're buying the energy from, it's going to be a lot longer. So for us, it's going to be organic growth at our sites. And again, I want to emphasize, we have 130 megawatts that are shovel ready for expansion capacity. And the second thing it's going to be is, we will look discreetly at acquisition opportunities only if they are accretive. There are people out there doing acquisitions that, A, the valuations boggle the mind, right? And B, I don't think they're accretive. And so as the largest shareholder of TeraWulf, I'm telling you, we're not going to do a deal out there unless there's a way to take it over, manage those costs, and it will be immediately on day one accretive to what TeraWulf is all about. We're also going to stay within our thesis. I mean, I think having this zero carbon approach is very, very important. Institutions are coming into the space. They're coming in even now. And they're going to come in a larger way over time as Bitcoin continues to spread through the ecosystem. And I think it's important for those institutional investors that we live up to the promise of low carbon, because I think, A, it means our costs will be lower than anyone else's, as regulation will obviously want to, go after a fossil fuel facility. 2 is we'll have less volatility in our cost of operations because we're not subject to that change. And three, we just have lower costs. I don't know if I mentioned this, but in our nuke, where we have 2 cent power, we didn't have to post any collateral. You find me one other deal out there, one other long-term fuel supply agreement where the buyer does not have to post collateral. It ain't out there. That was done because we have the team that we do, but that reduces our cost structure. So I think discrete acquisitions, if they make a lot of sense, take advantage of our 130 megawatts that's shovel ready, and then continue to drive our costs down and operate to the best of our ability.
Great. Yeah, the M&A is going to be interesting to watch in the sector over the next few months, especially around halving. So that'll be interesting, Paul, and looking forward to seeing if anything comes up there. Now, I was going to ask you kind of your main priority heading into halving. I think you pretty adequately answered that in the last response. So I'll swap it out. We've heard a number of CEOs and executives come in and say, hey, the miners are a leveraged play on Bitcoin. And obviously you've got hash rate growth, and you've got your HODL strategy and Bitcoin price. There's a lot of factors. So I know you made that statement as well. Can you just explain to viewers or people who are maybe newer to this space, what do you mean when you say miners are a leveraged play on Bitcoin?
So you have the opportunity to buy stock in a vehicle that is manufacturing Bitcoin at the lowest possible cost, right? And it's liquid, and you have the ability to scale it over time. Whereas you have the liquidity as if you were just buying and selling Bitcoin, but you're actually in a much larger play. And so I think that's what people mean when they talk about it. They don't not talking about debt or anything like that. It's just an opportunity to be part of a much larger program of Bitcoin ownership, if you will. And by the way, when we take our Bitcoin, what we like to do is, we're going to use it to pay down debt. We're going to use it to increase our footprint in terms of mining. And at some point, we'll use it to distribute, make a dividend or a distribution to shareholders. So that's our approach to Bitcoin.
Great. And thanks for
getting back to where you started that. My primary goal right now is manage costs in the 43 megawatts at Lake Mariner. That's what I got to do. And if we could, over the next 12 months, optimize our profitability ahead of the halving so that we can delever and return value to the shareholders, scale our operations, right? And opportunistically pursue those strategic acquisitions or opportunities that may be presented as a result of a challenging market. Not everybody has our low cost to mine Bitcoin, and those guys are going to be left behind. If we could do that, I will have achieved my goals going into the halving.
Works for me. I'm happy with those goals, and I'll be a happy shareholder. Paul, thanks for explaining that. I totally agree with the statement that the miners are a great leverage way to get exposure to Bitcoin. I really appreciate you coming on today. I think you're doing the right things. Obviously, Q2 is really a testament to that. And yeah, we'll make sure to have you on again, hopefully closer to Q3 results. If there's anything we missed in today's discussion, you guys, that you want answered from the team at TeraWulf, make sure you throw it in the comments. If you're still watching, hit the like button, subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the channel. Paul, I'll kick it back to you. Any closing thoughts, any remarks before I let you go?
Just a few, and I appreciate your patience with me. Focus on Wulf because of vertical integration, low cost of power, and a seasoned, experienced management team that is not only seasoned in the space, but we've been doing this together for 15, 20 years. Follow us on TeraWulf.com. Follow us on, Twitter. You could follow me on Twitter. I'm less interesting than the TeraWulf site. And please take a site tour of our facilities on YouTube. It's amazing. I think our facilities are peerless and the two best sites in the country. So I would encourage all of your followers to do that.
Sure.
Again, I'm very grateful for your time.
No, you're more than welcome, and I'll make sure I link all the social media, the company website, all that stuff for you as well, Paul. Really appreciate you coming on. As I said off camera there, you're definitely one of the more popular companies and guests on the channel. We'll be sure to have you back, and you have a great rest of your day.
Have a great rest of the summer. Thanks.